also involves Brian De Palma.
Ooh.
That involves, my God, just listen to this thing. You're going to like it. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
I've heard rumors of the normalness of your office, and it is so normal. Like,
Well, what would you picture?
I would picture something in like a scary neighborhood where you guys come up with really diabolical ideas. Something that looks like the Westward Ho, like the apartment, like the hotel complex that you destroy in the last episode.
I will say I think our Breaking Bad office was more similar to the Westward Ho or the Crystal Palace on Breaking Bad. It had a lot in common with those places, and we enjoyed it. It was great for the years we were there, and now we like having air conditioning and an elevator and all that good stuff.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you the most gorgeous thing. And this, well, now it's going to sound insincere, but
Not
it's
at all.
not. Is the fan art? We're sitting here right now in the room where we do our teleconferences with Albuquerque, and to cheer us up, we have fan art all over the walls, and it's something. There's a constant renewing display of fan art for Better Call Saul, and it means the world to us. It's amazing to me that people out there are drawing our characters. So it always makes me happy.
So whenever you're in a spot and you're just like, I don't know how we're going to finish this episode, you've got all of this reassurance from fans saying we love what you're doing.
Oh, well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. The other way to look at it is people are watching, and we better not let them down.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. It could go either way. I can twist it around to make myself feel bad, no matter what.
You shouldn't. I am a real live fan sitting across from you saying that I love what you do and really, really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I wanted to ask something that we wrote about in the wrap that got a little bit of a stir going. You mentioned that Walter White might still be alive during the Cinnabon period of Jimmy McGill's life.
You
haven't ruled it out.
We haven't ruled it out. And if you watch the show carefully, and you have a calendar at hand and you've taken notes, you remember that in the penultimate episode of Breaking Bad, Walt and Saul both get whisked off by the disappearer. Walt, we know, goes to New Hampshire. He's in New Hampshire a long time. I'm forgetting how long it is, but it's at least, I think it's got to be like 8 months.
Yeah.
So we don't. But when we see now, we're seeing Gene, the character who used to be Saul Goodman in Omaha. It feels like, and I'll give you this, it feels like he's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to say for sure that he hasn't been there for 4 or 5 months when we see him on Better Call Saul. So it's we're just leaving the door open. Let's put it that way. What would that mean to you if let's say Saul Goodman, Jimmy McGill, Gene is there in Omaha, and Walter White is still alive? What does that mean in your mind?
I know that you all have been trying to think of a way to get Cranston back for at least a cameo or something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't super satisfy me to have the guy who's still a chemistry teacher bumping into Saul at the supermarket.
Gotcha.
Like, it's cool, but how would it move things along?
Right.
I would be actually pretty psyched if he somehow ended up in Omaha. And I'm such a dork about this. I read a lot of the theories, and I understand that they parted ways in March of that year, which I think was 2010.
If you say so.
And then someone figured out Walt's birthday is in September.
Right.
And that he dies soon after his birthday.
Right.
Which means that he's still alive until September of that year.
Right.
So
okay.
then they figured that it's snowing in Omaha when we see Gene. And people tweeted me almanacs showing that there is no snow in Omaha in September. To which I say, but there is snow in Omaha in March and in April, potentially. And also, do they have to follow the actual weather patterns of real life Omaha in that year? I think you get to take poetic license.
But All right. You know, let me put it this way: if we haven't said it on the show, if it works in the universe of the story, I think all bets are off.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I'd love to see Bryan Cranston again as Walter White. I think he'd like to do it, but we have to come up with something that's worthwhile. I find it hard to picture actually that I wrote and direct. I was lucky enough to write and direct that penultimate episode, the Granite State episode. It's hard for me to picture Walt during the course of that episode leaving New Hampshire and going anywhere. Is that what you're pitching here?
Oh boy, pitching is too strong a word.
Is that what you're hypothesizing?
But he does travel from New Hampshire back to Albuquerque,
That's
and
true.
Omaha is kind of on the way.
Okay, all right.
It's not impossible.
I got you. That's, you know what? All right. That's an interesting thought.
I mean,
we're going to open the writers' room again in a few weeks, and I can tell you for sure this will be broached.
do people come up to you like at the coffee place and wherever else and say, "Here's how you should do it"?
No, it's. I'll tell you, they don't, and I think it's very satisfying that they don't because. I think my hope for the show was that it would live on its own and stand on its own 2 feet, and we wouldn't be just drifting off the work that we did on Breaking Bad, that Vince did. Of course, Vince did on Breaking Bad. That this show wouldn't be just building on just calling back constantly, and I guess what they call it fan service.
Yeah.
And so the thing that people ask me about when I'm in a coffee shop is what's going to happen to Kim Wexler.
Oh,
that's what's really worrying to people.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to Kim, and that is very satisfying to me because she's a character who we never saw on Breaking Bad, and so it proved to me that this show is people are invested in this show, and they're invested in this show not just because of Breaking Bad, but because of what this show is on its own, and that's really satisfying.
Yeah, I was going to say that her and Nacho have both just completely established themselves so fully, and they're so alive. They really stand on their own without any kind of touch back to Breaking Bad at all.
And that's such a tribute to Michael Mando and Ray Seahorn. They're just both really remarkable performers and both really fun to work with.
Yeah. My sort of theory has been, I feel like I'm like, first of all, let me just caveat.
Okay.
I think every fan of the show has figured out that whatever we think of is not going to be as cool as what you all are going to come up with. So like coming up with fan theories and all that sort of stuff is kind of pointless. But it seems unlikely to me that you would go longer with Saul than Breaking Bad.
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't know at this point. Of course, there's what we want to do, what our choice is, and what we want to do is to end this and hopefully have it work. Boy, I mean, I'm reaching for the stars, but trying to have it land and be satisfying, and that's what I think we did on Breaking Bad. That's what Vince led us to do on Breaking Bad, and I'd love to stick the landing on this. And however many episodes it takes to do that, that's the right number of episodes. Yeah. Having said that, there's always a business side to this business, and if people aren't watching the show, of course, we're going to have to stop. Fortunately, it seems like people are watching enough to keep us going. But it's I got to say, it's not something I take for granted. We're only here because of the support of the viewers, the fans, and AMC and Sony. That they've and believe me, it's a special kind of marriage between us and those companies because they, it's like getting married when you're poor. When things go better, you know that you're together for good reasons about the relationship, wow. and they really did stick with. Especially Breaking Bad, when really no one was watching. I mean, people forget, no one was watching. It was really, I thought, the first season of Breaking Bad, I thought it was so spectacular.
Yeah.
I was so into it, and I never met anybody who watched it. I'd be so excited to tell people what I was working on, and no one had ever heard of it. And so it was so rewarding as the years went on to have people get more excited about the show and about the characters.
I remember I was working at TV Guide, and we got all these different discs sent to us, and I would just pop them in at random, and it would be like, oh, Leverage, this new show on TNT. This is nice. This is pretty good. And then Breaking Bad came across, and I was like, I like the name. It's kind of cool. And watched it and was just like, oh, yeah, that's the best pilot I've ever seen. I hope this keeps going somewhere. And I was totally late. I was like probably a season late before getting into it. But my God, once I got into it, once you saw the Pink Rabbit, it was like, I'm all in.
It's a great pilot. It really is a spectacular pilot, but it does not do the thing that they always told you in the old days, the pilots were supposed to do, which is to tell you what the show is. Because if you watch the pilot of Breaking, as I did, I watched the pilot of Breaking Bad under high security up at Mark Johnson's company, Grand Via. I got to watch it, because it was part of the job interview to go work on the show, and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. But my question to Vince was, so what happens to Walter White? I mean, what's episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
Yeah.
Because the TV shows that I was familiar with, for the most part, there's a pattern to them. There's a pattern to the shows. And Vince said, he said, and maybe he was being coy, maybe he knew more than he was saying, but he said, well, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. And the great thing, one of the reasons why I think that show is so special, weirdly enough, is that it wasn't super duper planned. In that Vince trusted the process of going forward